You wake up every day believing you're free. Free to choose your job, free to buy whatever you want, free to be whoever you are. But what if I told you it's all a lie? What if your freedom was just an invisible collar that you yourself helped tighten? Karl Marx spent his entire life trying to show something that most people still refuse to see. You don't live in a democracy of choices. You live in a factory of illusions. And the worst part? You're both the product and the consumer of this factory. Think for a second. How many times have you felt guilty for not being productive enough? How many times have you looked at someone wealthy and thought they simply worked harder than you? How many times have you believed that success is a matter of individual merit? If you answered yes to any of these questions, congratulations. The system got exactly what it wanted, to make you believe the rules of the game are fair, when in reality, the game has been rigged from the start. Marx called this false consciousness. It's like you're wearing glasses that distort everything you see, but you don't know you're wearing glasses. You think you're seeing reality when you're actually seeing only what they want you to see. And the most terrifying part? These 5 lies I'm about to reveal aren't explicit propaganda. They're so deeply rooted in your mind that you defend them, as if they were your own ideas. The first lie is already operating right now as you watch this video. You think you chose to be here. You think you decided to click, watch, think about this. But did you really choose? Or did an algorithm calculate exactly what would make you stop scrolling? Are you the consumer or the product being consumed? If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you already knows something's wrong. That discomfort you feel, it's the first sign that the chains are starting to show. But before we continue, I need to warn you, once you see these 5 lies, there's no going back. You'll never be able to look at the world the same way again. So if you have the courage to question everything you've been taught, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and stay with me until the end of this journey. Because what comes next will completely change how you understand your own life. Every morning, millions of people drag themselves out of bed, put on clothes they can't really afford, drive cars they're still paying for, to jobs they secretly hate just to buy things they don't need. And they call this freedom. They call this the American dream. But Marx saw through this beautiful lie over a century ago. He called it commodity fetishism, but let's call it what it really is: the worship of things that own you. You've been taught since childhood that your value as a human being is measured by what you own. The brand of your shoes, the model of your phone, the neighborhood where you live. You've been programmed to believe that consumption equals happiness, that buying equals being. And here's the cruel joke. The more you buy to feel complete, the emptier you become, because you're not filling a void in your soul. You're feeding a void in the system. Think about the last time you bought something expensive, that rush of excitement, that momentary high. How long did it last? A day, a week? And then what? You needed another fix, another purchase, another hit of that consumer drug. Marx understood that capitalism doesn't just sell you products, it sells you an identity. And that identity is never complete, never enough, always one purchase away from perfection. But here's what they don't want you to realize. Every product you buy contains invisible chains. Not just the debt you accumulate, but something far more sinister. Marx called it surplus value, but I'll make it simple. Every single thing you own was made by someone who was paid less than the value they created. That difference, that's profit, that's theft. And you, the consumer, you're not just buying a product, you're buying into a system of exploitation. The smartphone in your hand? Someone in a factory worked 14 hours to make it, earned barely enough to survive, while the company made billions. Those trendy clothes you wear, made by hands that will never be able to afford them. That coffee you're drinking, picked by farmers who can't even feed their own children. And you? You work yourself to exhaustion just to afford these things, thinking you're climbing the social ladder, when really you're just running on a hamster wheel designed by people who profit from your exhaustion. The second lie is this: you think you own things, but things own you. Every purchase is a chain. Every credit card swipe is another bar in your cage. And the most twisted part? You've been trained to see these chains as status symbols. You literally show off your own enslavement and call it success. There's a word you've been using your whole life without understanding what it really means: work. You think work is what you do to earn money. You think it's a fair exchange of your time for compensation. But Marx saw something darker. He saw that under capitalism, work isn't just what you do, it's what you become. And what you become is a stranger to yourself. He called it alienation, but let me paint you the real picture. Remember when you were a child and you created things just for the joy of creating? You drew pictures nobody asked for. You built worlds in your imagination. You played without purpose. Now look at yourself. When was the last time you created something that wasn't for money, for approval, for productivity? When was the last time you did something simply because your soul demanded it? This is the third lie, that your natural state is to be a producer, a worker, a human resource. But you're not a resource. You're not capital. You're a human being who's been transformed into a machine that generates profit for others. And the most insidious part, you've internalized this so deeply that you feel guilty when you're not being productive. You apologize for being tired. You feel ashamed for needing rest. You've been programmed to see your own human needs as weaknesses. Marx wrote in his economic and philosophical manuscripts about how workers become alienated from four things. First, from the product of their labor. You make things you'll never own, create value you'll never see. Second, from the act of working itself. Your creativity is replaced by repetition, your passion by obligation. Third, from your human essence. You stop being a creator and become a cog. And fourth, from other human beings. Your co-workers become competitors, your boss becomes your master, and everyone else becomes either a customer or an obstacle. But here's what really breaks my heart. You've been so thoroughly alienated that you can't even imagine a different way of being. When someone asks what you do, you answer with your job title. Not your dreams, not your passions, not what makes your soul sing, your job. As if that's who you are, as if you were born to generate quarterly reports or serve coffee or answer emails. You've forgotten that you're a human being, not a human doing. And the system loves this. It needs you to forget who you are. Because a person who remembers their true nature, who remembers they were born to create and love and explore and rest and play, that person is dangerous. That person might start asking why they spend the best hours of their best years making someone else rich. That person might start wondering what life could be if work served humanity instead of humanity serving work. Now we arrive at the most elegant lie of all. The lie so perfect that even rebels against the system often fall for it. Marx called it the ideological superstructure, but I'll tell you what it really is. It's the story you tell yourself about why the world has to be this way. It's every movie that glorifies the entrepreneur who sacrifices everything for success. It's every motivational quote that tells you to hustle harder. It's every news story that celebrates billionaires as visionaries instead of questioning how one person can hoard that much while millions starve. You see, the system doesn't just control your labor and your consumption. It controls your imagination. It colonizes your dreams. Think about it. When you imagine success, what do you see? A bigger house, a better car, a higher position. Notice how even your fantasies are shaped by capitalism. You can't even dream outside its borders. Your imagination has been privatized. Marx understood that every society creates myths to justify its power structures. In feudalism, kings ruled by divine right. In capitalism, the rich rule by market forces. But here's the thing about market forces. They're not forces of nature. They're human choices disguised as natural law. When someone says, "That's just how the economy works," what they're really saying is, "That's how we've decided it should work." But you've been taught to see these decisions as inevitable, like gravity or the tides. This is why Marx spent so much time analyzing ideology in works like the German ideology. He saw that the ruling ideas of every age are the ideas of the ruling class. The people who own the factories also own the newspapers, the TV stations, the social media platforms. They don't just control what you produce, they control what you think about what you produce. They make you believe that your poverty is your fault, that their wealth is their virtue, that this system is the only possible system. But here's the crack in their perfect lie. Every generation, some people wake up. They start to see that meritocracy is a myth when the game is rigged from birth. They notice that for every self-made billionaire story, there are millions of equally talented, equally hard-working people who never had a chance. They realize that the American dream is called a dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. And when enough people wake up, when enough people start to see through the ideological fog, that's when things get interesting. That's when the ruling class gets scared. Because their power doesn't come from armies or police, it comes from your belief. The moment you stop believing that this is the only way, the moment you start imagining different possibilities, their whole house of cards starts to shake. This is the moment where everything breaks, where the comfortable lies you've been living shatter against the truth Marx spent his life revealing. You are not who you think you are. You are who the system needed you to become. Every choice you thought was yours was actually a path pre-selected. From a menu designed by people who profit from your decisions, your individuality, mass-produced, your rebellion, commodified and sold back to you, your very sense of self, a product of what Marx called class consciousness, except yours has been inverted, twisted, made to serve your own oppression. In Capital, Marx wrote about how the system creates what you need and then convinces you that you want it. But it goes deeper than products. The system creates who you are and then convinces you that you chose it. That anxiety you feel about not being enough? Manufactured. That constant comparison to others? Programmed. That voice in your head that says you need to monetize your hobbies, optimize your time, leverage your networks. That's not you. That's capitalism speaking through you. The fifth and final lie is the cruelest one, that you are an individual, separate from everyone else, competing in a fair marketplace of talent and effort. But Marx saw the truth. You are not an individual, you are a class. Whether you make minimum wage or six figures, if you have to work to live, you're working class. That CEO you admire, if they lost their job tomorrow, they'd be fine forever. You're always just a few paychecks away from disaster. That's the difference. That's the line that really matters. But they've trained you to identify with your oppressors instead of your peers. You defend billionaires' tax breaks while you can't afford health care. You vote against unions while your wages stagnate. You see other workers as competition instead of comrades. They've made you a guard in your own prison, defending the very system that keeps you chained. Marx called this false consciousness, but it's worse than that. It's self-betrayal on a mass scale. And here you are right now, facing a choice. You can close this video, go back to your life, pretend you never heard any of this. You can continue believing that if you just work a little harder, hustle a little more, sacrifice a little deeper, you'll finally make it. You can keep playing a game where the house always wins. Or you can do something much more dangerous. You can start seeing the world as it really is. You can start recognizing the lies when they're told. You can start understanding that your struggles aren't personal failures. They're systemic features. The crisis isn't that you're not enough. The crisis is that you've been measuring yourself with rulers made by people who profit from your sense of inadequacy. You're not broken. The system is. So, here we are, at the edge of the abyss, looking down at everything you thought was solid ground and seeing it's all just smoke. Marx didn't write thousands of pages just to depress you. He wrote them because he believed in something revolutionary, that humans could create a world where work serves life instead of life serving work, where creativity isn't commodified, where your worth isn't measured by your productivity, where you can be fully human without apology. But that world doesn't come from voting. It doesn't come from better apps or life hacks or positive thinking. It comes from what Marx called class consciousness. It comes from recognizing that your struggles aren't unique to you. That single mother working 3 jobs, she's not lazy. That college graduate drowning in debt, they're not entitled. That 50-year-old laid off after decades of loyalty, he's not worthless. They're all victims of the same system that's grinding you down. And once you see that, once you really see it, you can't unsee it. The Communist Manifesto ends with, "Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains." But Marx knew something else. Before you can break your chains, you have to see them. Before you can unite, you have to recognize each other. Before you can change the world, you have to understand how it really works. And that understanding, that's what terrifies them. Because a worker who knows they're exploited is dangerous. A consumer who sees through the lies is unprofitable. A human being who remembers they're more than their job title is ungovernable. This video isn't going to change your material conditions. You'll still wake up tomorrow in the same system. But maybe, just maybe, you'll wake up different. Maybe you'll stop blaming yourself for systemic failures. Maybe you'll stop seeing other workers as competition. Maybe you'll start questioning why we accept that some people have 5 houses while others have none. Maybe you'll remember that every right you have, every weekend, every safety regulation, every limit on working hours was won by people who refuse to accept that this is just how things are. Marx's legacy isn't just critique. It's possibility. It's the radical idea that the world we live in was made by humans and can be remade by humans, that capitalism isn't eternal, that profit doesn't have to be the highest value, that we could organize society around human need instead of private greed. Impossible. They said the same about ending slavery. They said the same about women voting. They said the same about every change that threatened existing power. If this burn inside you feels uncomfortable, good. That's your humanity trying to break free from the cage of capitalism. Don't let it die. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel if you're ready to keep questioning everything, because the revolution doesn't start with guns or governments. It starts the moment you stop believing their lies. It starts when you look at another exploited human and see yourself. It starts when you realize that you're not crazy for thinking something's wrong. Something is wrong, and together we might just be strong enough to make it right.